Hello and welcome to Simply inTAXicating. On the GST front, if we look at a series of decisions taken by the GST Council at the previous meeting, it may appear to most of the taxpayers that GST is going to be fully retired in a couple of months. The GST Law Committee, most of us know that the GST Council has approved several dozens of amendments. So they are getting up to table some sort of bill in the Parliament during the monsoon session. We will take a look at that. GST Return, which was a big issue and which has been alleged that it triggered some kind of slowdown in the revenue collections, in the return filing behavior of the taxpayers. That problem has been sorted out. Today we are going to touch this. We have three women experts. We have Mr. R K Singh, former Chief Commissioner and former member CESTAT. We have Mr. Aneemesh Saxena from FISME and also the president of Udog Bihar Industry Association. We have Puneet Bansal from Nitya Associates, our knowledge partner also. So we will touch various other aspects. Let me start with Puneet. The GST return. We started the journey with GST R1, GST R2, 3. We landed up with 3B. Finally, 3B has almost stabilized now. Most of the people are very comfortable. Meanwhile, the GST Council has approved a lot of amendment. So looking at the amendments, and there are a lot of confusion among most of the taxpayers. So how do you look at the new format and how simple this is going to be? And what is going to be your experience looking at the design, most of the big parameters which have been decided for designing this? Now the Infosys is going to design it. The North Block is regularly interacting with Infosys to design this format. It's supposed to be a single page format. So how do you look at it?
So one of the important aspects of GST was that under old laws like excise and VAT, we used to see a lot of credit frauds. People used to just exchange tax invoices and used to get credit. So one of the salient features of GST was supposed to be that these credit frauds do not happen. For that, the GST started functioning on a totally electronic and digitized network. So a taxpayer has to file his return of supplies. His buyer will get credit based on whatever he has uploaded. So initially, government proposed that there will be 3 returns: GST R1, 2 and 3. GST R1, you declare your output. GST R2, your customer gets credit, and GST R3, you finalize. All of us have witnessed that how government's electronic networks have worked in last 1 year. So the government has actually put the matching concept in abeyance. Right. So only the requirement is to file a GST R1, you declare your output details on government site, and you file a summary return of whatever credits you are taking. So till now, no matching has actually taken place. And that's more because of government's lack of readiness on the electronic platform. Another important aspect to know is that unlike old laws, GST law has a clear provision that if your supplier has not paid the tax, you will not get the credit, come what it may be. Again, it's a big departure from earlier laws where if you are acting as a bona fide buyer, if you have purchased the goods, paid to the buyer, you will get credit even if the supplier has done fraud. But if we see last 1 year, there is no matching which has happened. Now what government has proposed in the return formats is, in a long run, they have put the onus on the supplier.
Right.
To put all the invoice details. So if I am purchasing goods, my vendor has to upload his invoice details. It should electronically flow to me, and that's the end of it. If my vendor has done correctly, I will get the credit. If he has not done, the only recourse for me is to reach out to him. He does the corrections, etc., and I get the credit.
So same system used to prevail, sir, in VAT also, what Puneet ji is suggesting?
No, so in VAT, what used to happen was, some of the state governments used to have this matching concept offline. In the sense, every 3 months, 6 months or 1 year, at the back end they used to do matching, and then they used to tell to the taxpayer that this is not matching. So this is the proposed system which they are having, and again they are planning it to have it in 2 phases. So this is the system which is the ideal system government is looking at maybe 6 months down the line. For first 6 months, what they are proposing is that the supplier should upload the details. The taxpayer will have 3 months time to do the reconciliations, etc.
Right.
And within 3 months, if something is not reconciled, the credit he needs to reverse. So another important aspect which came in the press release of the government was that today the onus is on the person taking the credit that the vendor has paid tax or not. So if vendor has not paid the tax, the person will not get the credit. What has come in the press release is if the vendor has not paid the tax, we will firstly reach out to the vendor, recover tax from him. If the vendor has run away, etc., if there are circumstances under which we are not able to recover tax from him, then only we will go to the recipient. So this is a big departure which government is planning.
How do you see some problem areas here, sir? You know, sir, in terms of administrations, I am looking at from that perspective. You know, what government has committed now, of course, from the industry perspective, it's very good. Because at least they are not going to touch the recipient. They are looking at the supplier side. If somebody has done a fraud, so the government is saying that we are going to change, don't worry. You avail your credit and we are going to change. Looking at, sir, you know, the size of the problem now from tax administration side. Sir, you know, you must have come across during your stint in the departments, the send-back credit misuse, service tax credit misuse. So, I mean, those people who are so much used to doing this kind of use and misuse, they will continue to do it. So, do you think that this is going to pose a serious challenge also for the tax administration to go after this kind of fraudsters?
As a matter of fact, it will, and I have seen the opinions of people that how can the buyer who has paid the tax to the person be held responsible. The government has a very serious issue. Think of a person who is just having a desk in a small room, issues an invoice of 600 crores for the sake of argument with a tax of 60 crores. And the person takes credit of 60 crores, this person runs away thereafter. To say that the buyer is not at fault is actually not a great solution. There has to be a midway found. And the midway which has been found is, we'll go after the person who did not deposit the tax in the first place, but eventually, if you're not able to get the money from him, you will have to reverse it. That's probably a good midway, because putting the entire blame onto the supplier and putting the recipient totally scot-free is going to be fraught with tremendous amount of risk.
Maybe Mr. Aneemesh perhaps would like to throw some light on this.
I agree to him, it could be a connivance between a buyer and a seller, create a fake invoice and take the credit there, and this guy runs away. Because chasing that person will be a humongous task, and I don't think tax administration will have that kind of manpower or resources available to chip, because these days with a small desk, you can open a company, take the number and start issuing the invoices. That will not be a practical solution. That I agree with him, there has to be some middle path where the onus is on both, so that you start streamlining your supplier base. If pressure is on a buyer, that your supplier should be something like know your supplier,
right?
KYC norm kind of thing, know your supplier. In fact, just for information for as a personal thing, in our company we started doing this ourselves to streamline so that we know each and every vendor, because during the process there are a lot of purchases made which sometimes could be dubious also.
Right.
So in order to control that, we started that. This probably could be a solution.
Yeah, Puneet, I mean, you would like to comment on this?
Yes, so like there's a saying that fraud vitiates everything. So if buyer and seller are in connivance, I fully agree with you that both should be held responsible and government should not lose the revenue. But if it's a bona fide or genuine transaction, that I buy goods from you, I have physically received the material, I have actually paid value of goods and taxes to you. In my view, I cannot be held responsible, nor I should be expected to see whether you are doing your compliances properly. Like the example you gave, someone sitting in a room, he is raising invoices of 600 crores. Government cannot run away from its responsibility, because now again everything is electronic. they know, oh, a new registered person, he raising invoices of 600 crore, they should be alarm bell at their end only. They cannot shift their responsibility to me and say that, oh, I should run after you whether you are doing things correctly or not.
Right, sir.
It's actually a little more complex than that. Even in the normal transaction, suppose you make the payment for certain goods, and the person who supplies the goods sends you junk. What do? Don't you run after him that, look, you told me to supply these goods, you never supplied those goods. Similarly, the credit is of the duty which the government got. Credit is not of the duty which you paid to somebody. In the ultimate analysis, credit is only of that tax which the government has actually got. How can the government allow you credit of something which they never had in the first place? So it's a bit more complex than that. But I agree that the recipient should be protected to the extent possible.
Yes.
But let me tell you, in the ultimate analysis, the ultimate responsibility, the ultimate sufferer, in case the revenue is not collected by the government, will be the recipient. There is no escape on that.
Yeah.
Correct, correct. But it will be kind of, sir, short-term relief.
Yeah, precisely.
And he's talking
Yes.
about this
Yeah.
provisional linkages with
Yeah.
the ITC and the supplies, etc. And after 6 months, what will happen?
See, I think one major change which has happened, like we discussed, that the responsibility today on buyer, the first responsibility the government is planning to shift to the supplier, so which is a very good thing. Only in exceptional cases they will come to the buyer. Secondly, from a law perspective also, earlier this credit was allowed on a provisional basis. So again, once things are provisional, then it can always be subject matter of scrutiny whether this is correct or not. In future, everything will be final. So whatever my supplier has uploaded, that's final. So a lot of work which under the old system has to be done by the buyer of checking, approving,
Right.
etc. All those things will be done away. So in my view, when in July 2017 GST came, this was supposed to be the biggest change of matching.
Right.
Because if you see from a compliance perspective, only thing which has changed is that when you file your output return, you are just giving invoice-wise details. So real test of government's IT network, one, yes, the e-way bill which they have passed after failing for 2 months, and second will be how this matching will work. For companies like auto companies who receive lakhs and lakhs of invoices in a month,
Yes.
how this IT system will work, if there is a mismatch in amount, someone has not uploaded, changing their IT systems, chasing their vendors. So I think first 6 months to 12 months will be a big transition time for the industry to settle into this.
Right. So naturally, sir, going by the experience, building or evolving a new software, which will withstand the pressure of billions of invoices being matched.
Yes.
That is going to be the biggest challenge before the government.
Which
And more than that.
I agree to disagree or other way around with you,
Sir.
because GST network was from day one, even before the concept of GST came into being. GST network was going to be the backbone of
Yes.
the entire system.
Correct, sir.
And to say that, well, network has to function, obviously, that's a given, that's the beginning. If network doesn't function, the law doesn't function.
Right.
So there is no excuse on that.
No, but so their difference is that whenever they started working on a tool, because it takes time to develop something, so coding, etc., and they were close to wrapping up the entire project, they came across a lot of amendments. So they have to start afresh, the new project. And as a result, there was a pressure, the GST has to be kick-started. So having the tryst with the midnight, so, it was, sir, launched. It was launched, but going by the original concept, GSTR 1, 2, 3, because they did not ease that. So naturally, sir, that is how they could not take the pressure.
One good excuse,
Yes, sir.
tolerable, but the breakdown of network took place in areas which were not amended. That means the capacity even in those areas which were not amended did not match with the requirement, and the requirement was known a priori. So
Because-
excuse
yes.
can be given, but probably not a very forgivable excuse.
I think, sir, yes, may not be, sir, but the point they have been talking about in this forum elsewhere also, that probably the size of the task was also perhaps not well estimated. So they could not look at the kind of load on the server so the server could not take it, you know, and then the behavior of our professionals, particularly who are into return filing, that if it is 20th, then I will file my return only on 20th, not before that. You see, sir, like income tax, for instance, so what happens? I mean, last day itself, the income tax receives 1/3 of the total return being filed. So, I mean, that kind of pressure probably, and in fact, maybe you could say a little more about it, that on the refund front, what is happening, and good number of exporters are very unhappy.
Yes, unfortunately, this is the biggest crisis which refund, like especially the export industry where the refund is facing it. Refund process could not be started until, in practical terms, May this year. After 9 months, though when the GST was imposed, the government promised that 90% will be paid in 10 days and the 10% remaining in another few weeks. And a lot of capital, especially of the MSME, got blocked in this from July to April, May. And April, May, what way they did? They said first file the online and then submit the entire set in the offline, and then the matching will be done. The staff which were deputed, the earlier VAT or other things who have been redesignated, they were probably themselves not fully equipped, trained to handle this. And they had a lot of confusion, and everything they were referring to their seniors for something, because they felt if the money is released and refund is passed, there could be an action on them if something not done rightly. So as my own experience, the company, we have seen now it has started trickling in. And that too with a lot of back and forth where each and small objections are being raised of matching the invoices, the format of the invoices. In fact, they question sometimes the format of invoices, which government has very clearly specified. If a few items are there, format doesn't matter. But the inspector says a format is not correct. What happens in a small enterprises? You have very limited manpower to chase and handle these things. You don't have very educated people to work with you. If you yourself go, then you waste a lot of your time. So you're dependent on this. So it is increasing the cost, and the refunds are not coming. So now they have just started trickling in, and let's see if they can clear it, because I'm surprised why there's a fortnight for refund clearance. It has to be an automatic process. The government process promised that it will be a seamless automatic process. Why a fortnight? It means you acknowledge that there is a problem. That's why you are organizing a clearance week or clearance fortnight.
Right.
So
But this fortnight, does it help?
No.
It doesn't help.
That doesn't help.
You know, because we had a fortnight last time, and there the claim was that to the extent of 3,000 crore or something like that, or maybe 30,000 crore perhaps. Yes, the ITC and the refund both clubbed together, 30,000 crore was sanctioned. Now another refund drive, the fortnight has been launched.
It's not helping much, because they only clear which is, as per them, everything is clear. All the no objections, nothing. But the issue is the objections, which there is no clarity or no authority where you can go to the next level and fight it out.
So what he's suggesting is that maybe the 30,000 crore figure, perhaps large taxpayers also they are getting refund, but MSME particularly, they are suffering.
They have been to a big disadvantage in this scenario.
I mean, so this, yes, sir.
If you remember, refund has been a sore point from the very beginning.
Very beginning.
If in June 2018 we are still talking about organizing fortnights, that means the problem is really acute.
Yes.
And that's the acute problem, especially for small and medium industry.
Yes, correct.
And that has not been tackled. As a matter of fact, when you started the discussion, you called it GST Re-Tyred, which means it really got worn out so quickly, and that too without having been put to a proper use. What kind of law we have? I mean, to me, the number of FAQs needing to be answered is directly proportional to the complexity of law.
Absolutely.
And if you look at the complexity from this yardstick, this could be, with hundreds of FAQs having been answered, this could be the most complex law the world ever saw in the history of mankind, I think. And that's saying a lot in the negative sense. And I don't want to sound pessimistic, but calling spade a spade is actually required. what kind of law we have where the professionals are not able to figure out what the law means? I can understand few FAQs, you know, complex ones. But a financial services having 91 FAQs, only one service, which means the law is so damn unclear, I'm sorry for the word, that even people who are educated, leave alone the common man, people who are lawyers, chartered accountants, they are not able to figure out. So it requires a complete revamp to my mind.
Yes, sir. So we are heading for that retired, sir. Yes, I mean maybe Puneet would like to talk about some of those, you know, the trouble spots, you know,
right.
and you know, in the GST law canvas, which you think, as sir rightly suggesting that a lot of interpretational tools coming into picture, and it is not very clear. The clarity is missing. You know, the biggest strength of any law, that is the easy communication to the taxpayers for easy compliance. That thing is missing, you know, the clarity is missing. So you have also come across some of those?
Yes. So I'll firstly take up the export related issues. So yes, I think in first 9 months from July to March, there was hardly anything which was done by the government. But in last couple of months, lot of clarifications they have issued, lot of, I'll say, bugs or problems which are there in their software, because the processing of refunds required integration of GST portal and customs portal also, because unless there is a matching of shipping bill, the export refunds were not processed. So many of these things they have corrected, and yes, from May onwards, the refunds are getting sanctioned. Another important aspect relating to exports which I want to touch, which is a pain point, that when GST initially came, there used to be a lot of exemption schemes for exporters like EPCG, advanced licenses. Initially when GST came, the government stand was that you pay tax on everything when you import and take credit and will seamlessly grant refund.
Right.
But then we face the reality that refunds are not getting granted. So after 4 months they decided that let's continue old exemptions. A very innovative thought which was proposed by the government is that we'll bring a e-wallet facility.
Right.
That instead of granting exemptions which can be subject to misuse, we'll have a wallet in which we'll do adjustments of all your imports and exports. And the e-wallet facility was supposed to be made effective from 1st April. Unfortunately, again our IT systems were not ready. And the government extended these exemptions till 30th September. And a couple of days back, I was reading somewhere that even today, the government is not ready with e-wallet because firstly, making it, doing beta testing, integrating it with GST portal, customs portal. So we will see how much time they are taking, but if the government does not continue these exemptions again beyond September, it will be a big issue for exporters.
So anyway, don't you see a lot of virtue in this going slow kind of approach? You know, rather than rushing into it and letting the system crash again, and e-wallet system, ultimately, it's a new concept.
One thing very interesting which he said, our IT system, we are surprised, and sometimes, you know, when we tell this to our international buyers about the price rise from India, and we tell this new taxation, GST, other things come, and we tell them about the refunds not getting it. So they said, your country is the software provider to rest of the world.
Yes.
Whole world, you people are, your company is the best. And you are not able to create a software for your own use. So this is a very difficult question to answer for them.
We don't have time for ourselves, we have for others.
But I think now, looks to me, everything is going into, the whole government is now going into the election mode. And probably the things will be on a slow burner, no major,
reform
will happen. They'll wait for the next government to come, and then they'll probably take the next step.
Yeah.
One thing which is exporters, which we have been pressing the government, especially our industry, textile and apparel, that you come up with a duty drawback scheme sort of thing, where you do the calculation, what is the input cost of our product, and decide a formula that this percentage will be refunded to you from the drawback route, from the custom route, which was a much faster, much easier. It has been tested for last 15 years and it started working well. So if that comes, then it will be probably easier solution for the export industry. Right. If government comes with every industry that what is your input cost, which government is getting, and this will be refunded to you in a percentage terms. This could be a solution for them.
Okay.
And there are a few points I want to take, which sir also mentioned. So yes, as far as the law is concerned, it's too complex. So in years to come, we'll see a lot of interpretation issues coming out of it. The biggest problem happening today is that the government has created advanced ruling authority in each of the states. Composition wise, this advanced ruling authority consists of both members from the department only. So there is no judicial member. Till now, whatever advanced rulings have come, 90% are against the SSCs. In some cases, the advanced ruling in one state has taken a diagonally opposite view as to the other state.
Okay.
The whole purpose of advanced ruling was that a taxpayer can go and get clarity what should be his tax position. So with so many advanced ruling coming in a negative way, and
but we knew it in advance, sir, you know. We had a very advanced information about it.
Apparently not, because advanced ruling, apart from the structural defect of there being no judicial representation, that probably could be taken care of in a judicial proceedings. But the advanced ruling authority came to be structured in this fashion more because of the bureaucratic requirement of being able to have a parity between the state government representative and the central government representative. With the result that we have joint commissioners, I don't have anything against them, but the experience of joint commissioners obviously not as good as commissioners. And the advanced rulings, they're going in favor of department is not an issue. Whether the advanced ruling quality is up to the mark, that is the basic issue.
Yes.
And the experience has shown so far that the advanced ruling quality has been not bad, but abysmally bad, terrible. In the sense that even settled principles have been unsettled. And that kind of a situation creates havoc for the industry.
Yes.
And therefore something has to be done about the advanced ruling concept.
Yes.
Similarly, one more point I wanted to make was that, fine, law is complex and therefore you have clarified. Fine, clarification can be acted upon. But then you say, this is not legal. I mean, you cannot quote it as a matter of law. True. Then what is the value of clarification? Correct. If you clarify as a GST Council decision, then you add a caveat that please do as per the law. This is then what it is.
So and that what do you expect taxpayer to do? Follow or not to follow?
But so the latest FAQ doesn't carry any caveat. It doesn't have that financial services.
No, it doesn't. So what will that mean now? Does it mean that these FAQs are of a superior quality compared to the earlier?
Something is some interpretation.
That be another issue. Third, and that's my major pick. The FAQs have been answered without proper deep thought about the issue.
Right.
Many of them are patently illegal.
Right.
And there have been circumstances where the clarification came on the earlier FAQ that no, this is not what we meant.
Right.
An FAQ, once it is answered from the authorized body, has to be of a certain quality. And it cannot be so wishy-washy that it can be punctured on the basis of law in no time. And that's very, very important. That FAQ should be as per law and should be issued only after proper, deep consideration of the jurisprudence about it.
And I'll give an example. Like there used to be a debate that if goods are lying in custom bonded warehouse and a sale happens, whether that will attract GST or not.
Yes.
So initially they gave a circular, yes it is applicable. Recently they have issued a circular, it is not applicable. So what do you expect from taxpayer to do? If he has not followed that circular, they will have issued a show cause notice to him, you pay tax. And now whether this circular is final or another circular will be in the pipeline.
FAQs answers which are totally illegal, but we don't have time for that kind of discussion. But the short point being that an obvious defect in the answers has to be avoided.
Right, sir. I get the point. So, what about, sir, this one issue before we wrap up, sir? I would like to, I request you to touch, sir. This, the recent controversy, there is some letter which originated from North Block, apparently lashing out CGST administration that your efforts were not enough to buoy up the revenue collections. The latest figure which has come out now is going down below 1 lakh crore. So, this figure itself, and then there's some study, I don't know the parameters, as per the GST and data, suggests that the SGST officials have performed better than CGST officials. I don't know, I mean, it's so, I'm sure, so without sharing with you all those parameters and yardsticks which were applied, but still, I'm pretty sure that this SGST official, looking at prima facie, they have not contributed much to the policy side. Of course, apart from a few VAT commissioners perhaps participating in the law committee. Anti-evasion side, perhaps, sir. Whatever news which have been reported in the media and grabbing the headlines, the two people arrested in Mumbai, for instance, I found that, the Central Excise used to arrest every day, but no headline. But the moment in GST, two people were arrested in Mumbai, and it was Times of India headline. It was all top newspapers, because one foreign journalist asked me that, is it a news I should report for my country also? I said, no, just keep it in pocket. It is not relevant for you. This is only for the GST assessors in India.
And I've seen that letter, and very difficult for me to comment in concrete terms because I don't have the data which has been used for that kind of analysis. But from the face of it, if you look at the distribution of industry between the state and the center, there could be a lot there to indicate as to why certain sections of revenue went higher than the other sections of revenue. And therefore, probably to comment based on that about the performance indication might be a case of comparing apples and oranges to my mind. But if you have a data, probably one could be a bit more concrete about commenting on the thing.
I get the point. So, of course, I mean, I can understand the intention is perhaps to motivate or to pull up officers that, the revenue collection should pick up. That cannot be faulted with, but still.
I'll just add that if the intention is to motivate, then the intention will not be fulfilled if the analysis is defective. It can actually demotivate. So one should be careful on that.
Which appears to be the case here. So on this note, let me thank my guest, the three distinguished guests, for making very insightful views. And as Mr. Puneet rightly explained that the new system, the new GST Return, which is where, of course, the buyer's interests are going to be largely protected. But as Mr. Singh rightly also pointed out that the ultimate responsibility, the onus will certainly rest with the buyer if something goes wrong and if you are going to avail the credit. Of course, the government has taken the responsibility that initially the tax administration is going to chase those fraudsters who have probably not deposited the tax and pocketed the tax paid by the buyers. So that aspect is something we will look at it, how the law is involved, we will look at the amendments which are going to be part of the bill. Looking at refund side, as rightly suggested by Mr. Saxena, that his experience is this fortnight business is certainly hurting them more. It's not helping them at all. I mean, we had a fortnight earlier. Of course, some people perhaps got benefited, but good number of people, and particularly small and medium enterprises, they are still at the receiving end. Their suffering has not come to an end, and that is where the Government of India needs to look into it. We have a dedicated MSME ministry. Perhaps they should interact a little more with the GST Council and the GST administrations, not only at the center but also the states, to help out the exporters, and the refund must go back to them, because, and as Mr. Singh rightly suggested, that the law committee and the law review committee, it needs to take a fresh look at the GST laws, identify some of those vulnerable areas which are open to different kinds of interpretation, which will create little more problem, because ultimate objective of Government of India, no government can be to promote litigation. Litigation must be brought down. That is turning out to be the nemesis for revenue and for the tax collections. That is where the Government of India should focus, and let's hope that GST truly gets retired in coming months. Thanking you all for watching TIOL Tube.